morning, friends. Today we are going to learn more about the emotions, and in consideration to the different type of emotions, we are going to discuss on the negative emotions and through uh, the rubrics related to the fear and phobia. So, friends, usually we say that the fear is a very negative in nature. It should not be there. We should be courageous about our life. But it is not like that. Even it is negative for the life. If you are too much fearful, every time you are fearful, then it is problematic. But fear is a defense mechanism for you also, because without fear you cannot get yourself prevented from the danger. Whenever danger is there, there must be some fear within our life so that we can prepare for protecting or saving our life. So this fear is also very useful for us. Let us see when and how and why it can become the fear or the phobia, and what is the difference between the both. It is also very questionable, and we have to discuss on that. So we will be discussing on these aspects that is in today's class. So it is fear and phobia. One of the greatest discovery a man makes, one of his great surprise is to find he can do what he was afraid he couldn't do. This is a beautiful quotation from Henry Ford. Many a time we think that I can't do because it is impossible for us. We fear with that. But with the courage and with that courage and with your determination, you can make a new discovery for the life. This is a beautiful quote from the great industrialist Henry Ford. There are three things all wise men fear: the sea in the storm, the night with no moon, and the anger of the gentle man. This is very important thing. When the sea is storm is there, it is natural that the fear will come into your mind. And when there is no light, dark, moonless night, we have the fear. And when a gentleman, a wise man, and he is angered, that means something is the problem. Something is the problem. So the wise man's fear are the Patrick Rothfuss message for all of us. Thinking will not overcome fear, but action will. Anna, when you think, that doesn't mean कि I should not fear, but it will not. But if you start acting, your fear will vanish. So fear and phobias are defined as any unpleasant emotions or thoughts that occur when one is frightened or worried in any dangerous circumstances. And fear may arise due to trauma or bad experiences. It is a vital response of our body to protect against impending threats. It keeps us alert and trigger the fight or flight response. What you do, what you think about when you get a fear, when you are in a danger, when you are in a situations where it seems to be very difficult for you. Either you have to fight it out, or you have to remove from that. And this happens because you fear getting inflicted with the problem or getting involved into the problem. So this is very important definitions for the fear, that it is unpleasant emotions or thoughts that occur when one is frightened or worried in any dangerous circumstances. And fear is inevitable part of the life. You cannot avoid fear. It has to be there, and it is there. For some people, fear specific situations can become overwhelming and debilitating that it turns into the phobia. Now, there are the two types of the fear: the general fear, that we all have, but there are some specific fear that you don't fear whenever that thing, the thoughts, or you see those objects like snakes. If you have the fear of the snake and it is very specific in nature, that means whenever you listen or hear the word snakes, or you see the snakes on the TV or even the live TV, the body starts trembling. So fear, when associated with a specific object, it becomes a point for considering the fear as a part of change constitution. This man has a great fear for the cat. This man is very strong in nature, but he has a fear for the rat. This is very good example that I am quoting you. The fear with the rat, and man is very bold, courageous. He's supposed to be the very strong man, a strong willpower man. But what he fears? He fears with the cat or the rat. This is the contrast part of the life that is very important, that we have to keep in the mind. Now, fear is an intensely unpleasant emotion in response to perceiving or recognizing a danger or the threat. And fear causes physiological changes that may produce behavioral reactions such as mounting and aggressive response or fleeing the threat. Fear in human beings may occur in response to certain stimulus occurring in the present or in anticipation of expectations of a future threat perceived as a risk to oneself. The fear response arises from the perception of danger leading to confrontation with or escape from avoiding the threat, also known as fight or flight response, which in extreme cases of fear, horror, or terror can be freeze response or the paralysis. So, those type of the fear which has got the threatening effects or on the physiological changes that is causing the fear. With the fear, you start trembling. With the fear, the palpitations arises. You fear, and the perspiration arises. And there are sometimes with the fear, some people start vomiting or the nauseating or get fainted also. So when it is with the fear, if it is affecting your body, it is if you're creating a changes in your physiological actions, then it becomes a very important phenomena for considering as a symptomatic things. In human and other animals, fear is modulated by the process of cognition and learning. Now, what is that? Once a time, you were fearing with some type of that things, but later on, with the cognitions and learning, you understand that this is not a fear. Like I can give you an example that some people have got a strong fear in the childhood of about the ghost or the cat, because mother has taught them that if you don't behave well, the ghost will come, or you will be taken by the cat. But later on, with the learning and with your understanding developed, and you seeing the cat as a small animal, your fear vanishes and you become friendly with the cat or the ghost. And no fear of the ghost or no fear of the cat is there. Thus, fear is judged as rational or appropriate and irrational or inappropriate. An irrational fear is called the phobia. Rational fear is just appropriate things and they are useful for the life, but irrational fear is known as the phobia. And fear is closely related to the emotions, anxiety, which occurs as a result of threats that are perceived to be uncontrollable or unavoidable. The fear response serves survival by endangering appropriate behavioral response, so it has been perceived, throughout the evolution. And sociological and organizational research also suggests that individual fear are not solely dependent on their nature, but also shaped by their social relations and cultural, which guide their understanding when and how much the fear they should fear. So there are the two aspects of the fear. One aspect is that individually you have the fear. That is the constitutional part of your life, And when you have learned from the society or with the cultural, then it becomes the you have like you should fear with the God. Suppose, and we don't have we have never seen the God, but we have been taught that the God we should fear with the God, and that's why we have the fear and we get respect for the God. These are type of the things are there coming into our life because of the cultural or the social surroundings that we are going through. Now, difference between the fear and phobia. As I told you, phobia are irrational fear, and fear is a rational one. And fear is a natural emotional reaction when one believes that there is a real or imminent danger. It is rational. It is natural. For instance, it makes a sense to become scared in the midst of the lightning storm. Suppose in the night you are alone on the road and suddenly the lightning storms come. So at that time you are not prepared and you must have the fear. You must have. If you don't fear, then it is a problem. But you must have the fear. In fact, this fear prepares to take cover and gather emergency supply. Your fear lasts until the storm is over. So now, what you do when you get feared? You try to escape. You try to take a safety measure or emergency, fight it with the emergency. And fear is a type of anxiety disorder. Phobia is a type of anxiety disorder. Phobia trigger overwhelming anxiety even when it is clear you aren't in danger. So if you are not in danger, then also you are fearing. So it is irrational. There is no. For example, just seeing a spider on the TV can make you very anxious if you arachnophobia. If you are suffering from a fear of the spider, then spider phobia is known as arachnophobia. And but just see watching it on the TV, you get scared. Now, fear becomes phobia. Experience overwhelming anxiety that doesn't match with true level of the danger. When one have the phobia, just thinking about fear can trigger suddenly and intense anxiety will create. Now, a phobia is an irrational fear of something that's unlikely to cause harm. The word itself from the Greek word phobos, which means fear or horror. In a diagnostic and statistical manual of mental disorder, 5th edition, DSM-5, the American Psychiatrist Association outlines several of the most common fears. Phobia come in all shape and size because there are an infinite number of objects and situations. The list of a specific phobia is quite long. If you go through the Diagnostic and Statistic Manual, DSM-5, 5th edition, you can see the recognized phobia, common recognized phobia, and lists are growing. We will see some of the aspect of the list later on. A phobia usually causes fear of a specific object or a situation. It may also lead one to spend a lot of time worrying if going to run into the fear. One might go out of the way and avoid anything might encounter it, even if this time limits the life. In general, the phobias can cause symptoms. There are some common symptoms that I am going to share with you. With the fear, you are sweating, trembling, nausea, vomiting, losing control or feeling of the dying, urges for the toilet, chest pain, difficult breathing, rapid heartbeats, panic attack, formication, and something moving in the stomach. Now, this type of the rubrics that if you are going to find it on in the repertory, you don't have to. It is not there in the mind one chapter. You have to go the perspiration chapter, sweating, perspiring with the fear, trembling with the fear. And in the generality chapter, trembling fear from. In the stomach chapter, you will have the nausea and vomiting fear from. Losing control, it is the general chapter. And urging for the toilet, it is in the rectum chapter. Chest pain is also there. So these are the rubrics that you have to explore from the different chapters, related chapters of your repertory. According to DSM-5, specific phobias typically fall within five general categories. There are in the DSM-5 they have categorized into the five general: the fear related to the animals like a spider, dog, insects; fear related to the natural environment like height, thunderstorms, and the darkness; and fear related to the blood, injury, or medical issue, injection, broken bones, fall, etc. And fear related to a specific situation, flying, riding an elevator, driving, etc. And there are other fear of choking, loud noise, drowning, etc. So when you are looking for the case taking patient, you can keep this category into your mind, and you can ask the patient about the different levels, so that you, because many a time the patient will not tell you what type of the fear. But if you go, if you ask patient, do you have any fear, any type of the fear? He may say yes. What you have the fear with the when the thunderstorm, darkness, height is there, they will tell you something. And when it is related to the body, and when it is related to the specific situation, so you can this helps you in making a diagnostic approach while case taking. And what are the causation of the phobia? There are one genetic phobia. Phobia may have a genetic link. Study shows that if you have a family member who was a phobia, brain functions changes in uh, brain function changes in brain activity may contribute to phobia. Past experience. A phobia may develop after a real life distressing event you have had in the past. For instance, if you were bitten by a dog, you may develop a phobia of the dog. Then learned behavior. A phobia can be learned depending on your environment. Now, people with anxiety disorder sometimes experience panic attacks, and when there are in general certain situations, these panic attacks can be so uncomfortable that people do everything they can to avoid them from the future. Now, some of the phobia that has been identified, as I told you in DSM-5, this is and it has been nomenclatured differently. Achelophobia, fear of the darkness; acrophobia, fear of the heights; aerophobia, fear of flying; algophobia, fear of pain; alcatophobia, fear of chickens; agoraphobia, fear of public spaces or crowd; echinophobia, fear of needles or pointed objects; allurophobia, fear of cats. Then amaxophobia, fear of riding in a car; androphobia, fear of men; angerophobia, fear of angina or choking; anthophobia, fear of flowers; anthrophobia, fear of people or society; then aphenophobia, fear of being touched; then arachnophobia, fear of a spider; arithmophobia, fear of numbers; astrophobia, fear of thunder and lightning; and ataxophobia, fear of disorders or untidiness; and altophobia, fear of imperfections; achinotyphobia, fear of failure; and autophobia, fear of being alone. Then bacteriophobia, fear of the bacteria; barophobia, fear of the gravity; bathmophobia, fear of stairs or steep slopes; bacterophobia, fear of amphibians like reptiles, water animals. Then melanophobia, fear of pins or the needle; and bibliophobia, fear of the books; botanophobia, fear of the plants. Then cacophobia, fear of ugliness; catalgophobia, fear of being ridiculed; castrophobia, fear of mirror; xenophobia, fear of snow; and chromophobia, fear of the color; crymophobia, fear of the clocks; Sebophobia, fear of food; and claustrophobia, fear of confined spaces; and colorophobia, fear of clowns. Children are usually fearing with the clowns. Then cyberphobia, fear of computer; and cynophobia, fear of the dog. Then dendrophobia, fear of the tree; dentophobia, fear of dentist; domatophobia, fear of houses; dystophobia, fear of accident; entophobia, fear of insects; ethimophobia, fear of teenagers; and equinophobia, fear of the horses. Then gamophobia, fear of marriage or commitment. This is another, you have the rubric, separate rubrics for the fear of marriage. in your repertory in the mind chapter. Marriage, idea after marriage seems to be endurable. Then xenophobia, fear of the niche. Glossophobia, fear of speaking in public. Then gynophobia, fear of women. Heliophobia, phobia, fear of the sun. Hemophobia, fear of blood. This is another rubric that you can find in repertory. Blood cannot look at. Then heterophobia, fear of reptiles. Hydrophobia, fear of water. Hydrochondria, fear of illness. This is under the rubrics illness, disease, impending disease. The rubrics are there. Then heterophobia, fear of doctors. There is a separate rubrics, doctor fear is there in the repertory, not under the fear chapter, but separate rubrics is there. Insectophobia, fear of insects. Conicophobia, fear of people, room full of the people. Then claustrophobia and conicophobia are different. Claustrophobia is related to when you feel that the room is narrow, but when the room is full of people, they become fearful. Then leucophobia, fear of the color white. Then lilosporphobia, fear of tornadoes and hurricanes. And lochilophobia, fear of the childbirth. Many of children now, many of the women nowadays, they fear the childbirth, and they don't go for the normal. They go look for the cesarean birth immediately, so that don't get the pain. Then medicophobia, fear of cooking. Megalophobia, fear of large things. Melanophobia, fear of color black. Then microphobia, fear of small things. Masophobia, fear of insects and dirt, germs. Necrophobia, fear of death and dead things. Nectophobia, fear of the night. Nosocophobia, fear of hospitals. Nectophobia, fear of the dark. Then obesophobia, fear of getting wet. Many ladies comes that I'm getting wet, I am getting fat, I am becoming obese, and and this is the delusional feelings are also there. Octophobia, fear of the number 8. Then omcophobia, fear of rain. Ophidophobia, fear of snakes. Ornithophobia, fear of birds. Piperophobia, fear of paper. Pathophobia, fear of the disease. Pedophobia, fear of children. Philophobia, fear of love. And phobophobia, fear of the phobias. Now, this is another beautiful rubrics. Fear of the phobia, getting phobia, becoming phobia. You fear that, yeah, whether I am fear frightful man, I am fearing man. This is also there. Then podophobia, fear of the feet, and pogonophobia, fear of beards. Pyrophobia, fear of the color purple, and petridophobia, fear of pearls. Petrophobia, fear of flying. Pyrophobia, fear of fires, and semanophobia, fear of following. This is the ghost, etc. And then schoolophobia, fear of school. Selenophobia, fear of the moon. Sociophobia, fear of social evaluation, being judged by the society. And somnophobia, fear of the sleep. Then there is a fear of the speed, known as tachophobia. Technophobia, fear of the technology. Tautrophobia, fear of the thunder. Tyrophonophobia, fear of needles or injection. Venusophobia, fear of the beautiful woman. And vermiphobia, fear of the germs. Vicophobia, fear of witch and the witchcraft. Then xenophobia, fear of strangers or foreigners. And zoophobia, fear of the animals. So these are the rubrics that you can look into the either in the fear chapter or differently somewhere in the mental chapters also. Because when we see into the repertory, everything is not so perfect. There are something scattered and not under. So you have to look. You have to be well versed with the different places where you can find the rubrics. Now there are some cross references under the fear chapter. Elements from fear. But that means that after trying to become getting phobia, you have some problem develops, like the heart problem, like any gastric problem. Then anxiety is also regarded as type of the fear. But anxiety is a constant phenomena and it can vanish and it appears differently. Anxiety, fear with. This is under the anxiety chapter. You will find anxiety, fear with. Delirium, fear with. This is another good rubric under the delirium chapter you will find. Then frightened easily. Frightened easily. This is the rubrics that there is a rubrics also timidity, shyness, approaching. Children will not approach before the people. So timidity, frightened easily, and then bladder apprehension in the region of. In the different chapter also, you will find there is apprehension is also a type is known as the fear. So in the bladder, it seems that it is something is there and they have the fear. So these were the rubric. Then apprehension is synonymous with the anxiety and fear. This is a rubric, separate rubrics under your in your repertory, but it is regarded as the synonyms between the anxiety and the fear. Friends, freedom beyond the fear. At one time or another, everyone experienced the modern version of fear, which is anxiety. So anxiety is also regarded as the modern version of fear. Our ancestors experienced physical fears that might fear fight and flight response. That is no longer the case. Nowadays, people have got the anxiety, more anxiety than the fear. In modern life, largely thanks to increased stress, we endure a lower level pressure on the nervous system. When this chronic nagging response rises to the surface of mind, person notices that telltale it's a sign of modern fear, worry, insomnia, and absence of happiness, distraction, all of which could build into the chronic anxiety. So the way we deal with modern fear determines to great extent how creative, fulfilling, and contented daily life is. Many billions are spent in tranquilizer, which can reduce the symptoms or anxiety, but they are only a stopgap. Take away the drugs and anxiety always returns. So this is the dependent. You become dependent with the this type of the sedative things is not useful for the life, and they are always runs into the increasing of the fear or the sadness. The aspect of the human mind that can actually heal fear is awareness. Now, what is the healing factor? The medicinal factors beyond your homeopathic medicine, that becoming aware, becoming known. So awareness comes in three forms, each of which has the potential to heal. So when you become aware, the fear will be reduced or removed. And that is the rationality. You have to think in a rational way. You have to be self-aware, and then you have to be introspection about your life. That what type of actual body physical requirement and limitations of life is there. So if you have this type of the aspect, many of type of the fear are vanished, but phobia will not vanish. They will persist, and they will guide you for calculating your medicines. So rationality. Another important factor is rationality that I was talking. The glory of human evolution is the higher brain. But in the brain setup, we react first and then think second. This should give us the best of both worlds. You can react instantly to get out of the way of an ongoing process, but and evaluate what happened afterward. But when people are used to a feeling of anxious, fear has entered first and it is not followed by the region. So rationality is important for things that can help you in become. Then self-awareness. Fear is an unconscious response. If you know that, this is like that. Self-aware is consciousness. This makes all the difference. The more consciously you make choice, the more empowered and control your will. Fear will vanish. Whenever anxiety starts to appear in any situation, looking at, being aware of it, feeling it, it is a concept. When you think that you are becoming anxious and you look into it, your fear will vanish, your anxiety will remove. Then running away, going into the denial, turning a blind eye, etc., are unconscious choices that automatically surrender to the fear. Then introspection, bringing awareness to the body by directly sensing what is going on physically in the area of introspection. The key to introspection, a term that may still be unfamiliar to many people, lies in the wholeness. The signals being sent to you by your body are just as meaningful and intelligent as your thoughts and the insight. Suppose you got a diarrhea, and if you think that why it is diarrhea, and if you try to justify, look, have an introspections into your past few days, you will find that this diarrhea was caused by certain things, and immediately that your situations get resolved, and you will start feeling well. So this is awareness and introspection is taking your mind to the situations and why it has caused, and what is the reason, what is the maintaining factor. You can get a clear cut removal and freedom from the fear and anxiety. So the healing path of the phobia, it starts with the rationality. You have to be self-aware. You have to have introspections, then awareness, and that will be the healing part of your fear. So also has said the great fear in the world is opinion of other. When you look at the other, so at that time, the moment you are unafraid of the crowd, you are no longer a sheep, you become a lion. A great roar rises in your heart, the roar of freedom. The human race is a monotonous affair. Most people spend the greatest part of their time working in order to live, and what little freedom remains so fills them with fear that they seek out any and every means to be rid of it. This is another beautiful quotation that we have. So, thank you, friends, for today. I feel that I have tried to give you some insight into the fear and the phobia. This may be useful for you, and I hope you can have any questions in the mind. I have delivered this lecture in Hindi also on the last Tuesday lecture, but I feel that for our regular students, it is very important because you are at the learning stage. You must have the understanding for the fear and the phobia of what selected going into the. So looking at these rubrics in a group, it becomes very important and essential for you to understand the different type of the fears that are there in the life. So friends, it is the time is over now, and we have completed this lecture with this. If you have any questions, you can keep asking me on your the mobile number that I have mentioned, uh, or on the email ID that I have. Then you can also put it the questions on the YouTube from where you are listening these things. So thank you, and with this I close this session for all. Thank you. Thank you. We'll meet again next Sunday.